Namaste dear children, how are you? I am Rekha. Welcome to my channel Rekha's Knowledge Hub. Today we will see NCERT Class 6 Science Chapter 3 Mindful Eating, A Path to a Healthy Body Part 4. Next we will study about millets. Millets are nutrition rich cereals. You may have heard of jowar, bajra, ragi and sanva. These are native crops of India. So jowar, bajra, ragi and sanva, they are native crops of India. Bajra is also called a pearl millet. Ragi is also called a finger millet. So these are native crops of India. These can be easily cultivated in different climatic conditions. These highly nutritious grains are also called millets. So native crops are plants that originated and evolved in a specific region. They have adapted to the local climate, soil conditions over thousands of years. And they can be cultivated easily in different climatic conditions and they are highly nutritious. These grains are also called millets. Millets are small sized grains and have been an integral part of the Indian diet for centuries. So millets are small sized grains. They are a group of small seeded grasses. They have regained popularity due to their numerous health benefits. These millets have numerous health benefits. They are good sources of vitamins, minerals like iron and calcium, and dietary fibers as well. So these millets, they are rich in vitamins, minerals like iron, calcium, dietary fibers, etc. That is the reason they are called nutri-cereals. So millets are rich in vitamins and minerals and also dietary fibers. So millets are also called nutri-cereals. They contribute significantly to a balanced diet required for the normal functioning of our body. For normal functioning of our body, we require balanced diet. So the millets contribute significantly to a balanced diet. Do you know the millets often referred to as ancient grains? Why? Due to their long history. Food miles from farm to our plate. How does food reach from a farm to our plate? What are the steps involved in this process? Who are the people involved in this process? Do you know how much time and effort is required to get the wheat flour, one seed grains, germinate in the farm? Let us look at figure 3.10 to understand the entire process of making the chapati that we eat. So the distance the food travels from farm to plate is a complex process that varies widely depending on several factors like location, type of food, transportation methods, etc. So in this picture you can see farmer growing wheat. Then after that, threshing and winnowing of grains. What do you mean by threshing and winnowing of grains? This threshing and winnowing are two essential processes in grain production. See, threshing is the process of beating or rubbing grain stalks to loosen the kernels from the husk. That is called threshing. Traditionally, threshing was done by hand. But nowadays, we use machines. Then what is winnowing? Winnowing is the process of separating the grain kernels from the chaff using wind. So after threshing and winnowing of grains, the next step is storage of grains. The grains, they were generally stored in granaries. And these structures were designed to protect the grain from pest, moisture and other elements. The next step is grinding of grains and packing. Then transport to retail shop. Then food on our plate. We will buy wheat flour from retail shop and we will make chapatis. The entire distance traveled by a bag of wheat or any other food item from the producer to the consumer is known as its food miles. This is very important. What is food miles? The entire distance traveled by any food item from the producer to the consumer is known as food miles. Producers are those who produce food items. For example, a farmer. A farmer who grows wheat is a producer. Then, who is a consumer? Consumers are people who purchase goods and services. For example, a person who buy groceries. He is a consumer. So, the entire distance traveled by any food item from the producer to the consumer is known as its food miles. Then reducing food miles is important because it helps to cut down the cost and pollution during its transport. It helps support local farmers and it also keeps our food fresher and healthier. This is also very important. Why reducing food miles is important? Reducing food miles is important because it helps to cut down the cost and pollution during its transport. Then it also helps to support our local farmers. It also keeps our food fresher and healthier. If the distance is less, the cost of transportation will be less. If we buy locally produced food, then it will help our local farmers. Also, locally sourced food is often fresher with high nutritional value and better taste. Also, if we reduce the transportation time, then it can help to minimize the risk of foodborne illnesses. Many people waste food, leaving it unconsumed on their plates. One must remember the time and effort put by our farmers and other community members in getting the food from farm to our plate. So we must not waste food. Many people waste food, leaving it unconsumed on their plate. Our farmers and many other people, they are spending a lot of time and putting more efforts to bring the food from the farm to our plate. So we must not waste food. We must take only as much food as we can consume. It would reduce food wastage. Try to find the timeline for the various processes involved in getting the food from farm to plate. Eat healthy, share and respect food. Support local producers. This is very important. Eat healthy, share and respect food. Then we must support local producers. Next we will see the summary. People across India eat diverse types of food containing various food components. Choice of food may vary according to the cultivation of food and crops in a region, taste preferences, culture and traditions and so on. All we studied in the previous videos. The next one, culinary practices have changed over time. There is a significant difference between traditional and modern methods of cooking food. What do you mean by culinary practices? Culinary practices refer to the techniques, ingredients and traditions involved in preparing food. Also, there is a big difference between traditional and modern methods of cooking food. Then food provides us energy, support growth, repairs our bodies and protects us from various diseases. We have energy giving food, body building food, then protective food. So different types of food. The major nutrients in our food are carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins and minerals. In addition, food also contains dietary fibers and water. So our food contains different nutrients. Carbohydrates and fats, they are energy giving food. Proteins are body building food. Vitamins and minerals, they are protective food. Then our food also contains dietary fibers and water. Carbohydrates and fats are primary energy sources while proteins are body building nutrients. Vitamins and minerals strengthen our body, protect us from infections, and keep us healthy. A balanced diet provides all the essential nutrients in the right quantities along with adequate roughage and water. This is also important. What is a balanced diet? A balanced diet provides all important nutrients in the right quantities along with the roughage and water. Deficiency of one or more nutrients in our diet for a long time can lead to deficiency diseases and disorders. So, deficiency of one or more nutrients can lead to deficiency diseases and disorders. Junk foods are unhealthy as they contain high levels of sugar and fats, but little protein, minerals, vitamins, and dietary fibers. So, junk foods are unhealthy. Millets are also known as nutri-cereals as they provide most of the nutrients required for the normal functioning of our bodies. They can be easily cultivated in different climatic conditions. Eating food that is locally grown and plant-based to the extent possible is not only healthy for our bodies but is also good for our environment and our planet. So, eating food that is locally grown is very important. The distance traveled by a food item from the place of its production to the consumer is called food miles. We must aim to minimize food miles. We must eat locally grown food items. We should never waste food and only take as much as we can consume. We should not waste food. Let us enhance our learning. Pick the odd one out and give reasons. First one, jowar, bajra, ragi, chana. Which is the odd one? Chana. Why? Because jowar, bajra and ragi, they are millets, but chana is a pulse. Then second question, kidney beans, green gram, soya bean, rice. Which is the odd one? Rice. Why? Because kidney beans, green gram and soya bean, they are pulses, but rice is a cereal. Discuss traditional versus modern culinary practices in India. Traditional culinary practice, cooking was done using a chulha, but in modern culinary practice, modern gas stove is used. Then, in traditional case, grinding was done manually using a silbatta, but in modern case, electrical grinder is used for grinding. Then, in traditional practice, local ingredients are used, but in modern culinary practice, it incorporates global ingredients. Then, traditional case, less processed and contains fewer preservatives and additives. But in modern case, more processed ingredients, additives and preservatives. A teacher says that good food may act as medicine. Ravi is curious about this statement and has some questions for his teacher. List at least 2 questions that he can ask. He can ask something like this. Can you provide examples of diseases that can be influenced by diet? Or he can ask, how does food interact with our bodies to have a medicinal effect? These questions he can ask. Not all delicious foods are necessarily healthy, while not all nutritious foods are always enjoyable. Share your thoughts along with a few examples. See, delicious but unhealthy. For example, fried foods. They are high in fats and calories. Then sugary drinks like soft drinks. They are high in sugars. Then sweets and desserts. They are high in sugar, fats and calories. They are delicious but they are unhealthy. Then nutritious but less enjoyable. For example, spinach. They are highly nutritious but bitter taste. Broccoli, healthy vegetable but slight bitter taste. Then whole grains. They are healthy but different texture and flavor. Medu does not eat vegetables but enjoys biscuits, noodles and white bread. He often has stomach ache and constipation. What changes should he make in his diet to get rid of these problems? Explain your answer. Avoid processed snacks. Then eat whole grains rich in fiber and nutrients. Then eat more vegetables and fruits. Then drink plenty of water. See, eating junk foods and processed foods may cause stomach ache and constipation. So, avoid eating such junk foods. Reshma had trouble seeing things in dim light. The doctor tested her eyesight and prescribed a particular vitamin supplement. He also advised her to include a few food items in her diet. Which deficiency disease is she suffering from? She is likely suffering from night blindness. It is a vitamin A deficiency disease. Then, which food components may be lacking in her diet? She is lacking vitamin A in her diet. Suggest some food items that she should include in her diet to overcome this problem. She could include carrots, sweet potatoes, mango, pumpkin, spinach, eggs, liver, apricots, etc. These are rich in vitamin A. You are provided the following: canned fruit juice, fresh fruit juice, fresh fruit. Which one would you prefer and why? Fresh fruit is preferred. Why? Fresh fruits contain more fiber, more vitamins and water content. They contain natural sugars. So they are good for our health. Gaurav got a fracture in his leg. His doctor aligned the bones and put on a plaster. The doctor also gave him calcium tablets. On the second visit, the doctor gave him vitamin D syrup along with calcium tablets. Then refer to figure 3.5 and answer the following questions. Why did the doctor give calcium tablets to Gaurav? Calcium can help the boy's bones heal stronger and reduce the risk of future fractures. Also, calcium can prevent osteoporosis. What is osteoporosis? It is a condition where bones become weak and brittle. On the second visit, why did the doctor give vitamin D syrup along with calcium tablets? Because vitamin D is essential for the absorption of calcium. What question arises in your mind about the choices made by doctor in giving the medicines that you can do? You can ask some questions like this. Why is vitamin D necessary along with the calcium? Are there any risk or side effects associated with taking these supplements, vitamin D and calcium? Why vitamin D is not given in first visit? These questions will arise in your mind. Sugar is an example of carbohydrates. Sugar is tested with the iodine solution, but it does not change to blue-black color. What can be a possible reason? Starch is a complex carbohydrate, while sugar is a simple carbohydrate. Sugar, being a simple carbohydrate, does not react with the iodine solution which is used to test for starch. Iodine turns blue-black in the presence of starch but not in the presence of sugar. See, starch is a complex carbohydrate but sugar is a simple carbohydrate. Using iodine solution, you can test the presence of starch because starch is a complex carbohydrate. But sugar, being a simple carbohydrate, does not react with the iodine solution. So, when sugar is tested with iodine solution, it does not change to blue-black color. What do you think of Raman's statement? All starches are carbohydrates, but not all carbohydrates are starches. Describe the design of an activity to test your answer. So, you take two test tubes, name them A and B. Fill A with the starch solution and B with the simple sugar solution. Then add 2 or 3 drops of iodine solution to each of the test tubes. If the color changes to blue or blue-black, starch is present. If the color doesn't change, starch is not present. So, solution in test tube A turns blue-black because it contains starch. But B doesn't because it doesn't contain starch. It contains simple sugar solution. While using iodine in the laboratory, a few drops of iodine fell on Mishti's socks and a few fell on her teacher's sari. The drops of iodine on the sari turned blue-black, while the color on the socks did not change. What can be a possible reason? When iodine falls on a sari and socks, sari turns blue-black, while the color on the socks did not change blue-black. Because the sari was starched and the socks were not starched. So iodine reacts with the starch to produce a blue-black color in the sari. Why are millets considered a healthy choice of food? Can eating just millets suffice for the nutritional requirements of the body? Discuss. Millets are a great source of nutrition, high in fiber and rich in vitamins, minerals and proteins. So they are considered a healthy choice of food. But millets are not the only thing you need for a balanced diet, but they can be a key part of it. A balanced diet needs a variety of nutrients like vitamins, minerals, fats, proteins, etc. You are given a sample of a solution. How do you check the possibility of it being an iodine solution? Take a small piece of item containing starch. For example, you can take a small piece of potato. Add a few drops of sample solution on it. If the item, for example potato, turns blue-black, the sample solution contains iodine. If there is no color change, the sample solution does not contain iodine. Iodine is used to detect the presence of starch. Children, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. We will see in the next video. Thank you.